Sir Mark Hendrick.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it's a pleasure to follow the Chair of the Committee. Following the fan-led review by the Honourable Member for Chatham and Aylesford in 2021, I spoke in the Westminster Hall debate through petition on this issue. As I said in that debate, and I will reiterate again, the current disparity between the rich and poor and the selfish nature of the elite clubs needs remedying, and this bill does not do justice to some of the issues she raised in her report, particularly with regard to grassroots football, women's football, anti-discrimination and equal opportunities, but I'm sure those issues will be followed in due course by later legislation sometime in the future. Football in this country has become a story of the haves and have-nots, and regulation is desperately needed to ensure the health and prosperity of the game across all levels, not just within the Premier League. I therefore welcome this bill and am supportive of the creation of a single independent football regulator. At a time when the game has become an international sporting juggernaut and a global commodity with revenues greater than ever before, the financial and long-term sustainability of the football pyramid has never been more at risk. Too many historic clubs are at a cliff's edge, about to fall off and face the fates of historic clubs like Bury, which has disappeared, and those like Bolton and Wigan and others that have struggled since. This is why new legislation is crucial. Fans need a greater voice in the running of their clubs, and there needs to be a better means test for owners and directors to ensure fiscal sustainability and to root out financial mismanagement, which has plagued too many clubs, whether from foreign investors or domestic owners who have done the same thing. An independent football regulator should ensure that English football continues to serve the interests of regulated clubs while also contributing to the economic and social well-being of the local communities of those associated regulated clubs. Yet a regulator should be a watchdog, and a watchdog without any teeth will not be much of a regulator. This is why it is essential that the regulator has the powers to do its job properly. The financial gap between the Premier League and EFL has reached a critical point. 30 years ago, EFL revenues were 75% of the Premier League's. Today, they are just 6%. The gap then was 11 million, now it is £3 billion. At this pace, the football pyramid is untenable, and the financial gulf between the two leagues and across all levels continues to worsen. There is no question that there is enough money in the collective pot to achieve sustainability at all levels if the game's revenue is distributed in the right way and fair way, coupled with proper governance and organisation. As it stands, the Premier League continues to rule the roost when it comes to English football. Yet some clubs at the top flight have shown that they are incapable of self-regulation. One only needs to look at some recent financial breaches to see firsthand that the Premier League is not in a position nowadays to self-govern and regulate the sport when they struggle to keep their own house in order. Some have instead reaped the financial rewards without showing any concern or desire to preserve the health of the sports outside of their own needs and ecosystem. Only an independent regulator will be able to provide proper oversight and regulate clubs' behaviours and intervene where necessary to ensure that they act responsibly. The bill also gives targeted backstop powers to allow the regulator to step in with regards to the allocation of broadcasting revenue between the Premier League and the rest of the football pyramid if needed. On the face of it, this is fine, but under this process, the relevant specified competition organisers, i.e. the Premier League and the Football League, are required to enter into a period of mediation about the distribution of relevant revenue received by one of them, and if they are unable to reach an agreement, the independent regulator may make an order as to the distribution of that relevant revenue. However, with the bill as drafted, this does not apply to certain circumstances where relevant revenue, as referred to in the bill in Part 6, Clause 55(2)(b), does not include parachute payments, which are defined as payments made directly to newly regulated clubs. As has been mentioned earlier, this cannot be fair and deliberately excludes the Football League from making its case that the parachute payments are disadvantaging and distorting the revenues of Championship clubs as a whole. The payments are not just a parachute meant for a soft landing, they are a ladder back to the Premier League for most of those clubs that have already been relegated. Now you can see this with the Championship division at the moment, where Leicester City, Leeds United, Southampton and Norwich City occupy the 4 of the top 6 places and top 6 spots in the division. Incidentally, Norwich have been relegated 6 times from the Premier League since it was formed in 1992. So that exposes the fact that the payments are a ladder back to the Premier League to the disadvantage of others elsewhere in the Championship division. Preston North End, my local club in my local constituency, which has its own place in history as a founding member of the Football League, joins me in believing that the regulator is the only option which should be to underpin both sustainability and competitiveness within the final distribution of the football pyramid. Preston are sitting in 10th place in the Championship League table as we speak. It is a club who have never played in the Premier League. They are the only former top-flight First Division champions who have never played in the Premier League and has a wage bill in the region of £16 million. How can they compete against the likes of Southampton, which were relegated in 2023 and has an approximate £88 million wage bill? That's something like 6 or 7 times. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, as a lifelong football fan, I believe this House not only has the opportunity, but more importantly, the obligation to create much-needed reform in the game and create a transformative bill that safeguards all clubs for decades to come.